Good Monday morning. Thank you so much for joining us here on our Facebook stream and a show we'd like to call After GMS. I'm Stacy Spivey here in studio, and Trent Kirksey, Megan Malaris are working from home. Our Candace Red has been live all morning. Tracy McCain and Ed Matthews have the day off. It is a very busy day, so we want to go ahead and get started with the latest on Tropical Storm Isaias. Trent, I'll let you take it away.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about it really quickly. And you see it spinning right there just off of the coast of Florida. So let's go ahead and get to the graphics here and show you what's going on. As I zoom on in here, we're just going to just kind of look at the stats here really quickly. Let's go through the graphics here. The latest advisory that the National Hurricane Center produced was at 5 a.m. And at that point, it had maximum sustained winds at 70 miles per hour. So it is just under Category 1 hurricane status, and it will have a chance to attain hurricane status again as we go through the rest of the day today. The atmospheric conditions over that part of the ocean are fairly conducive for development, and the water is really warm off the Georgia and South Carolina coast as well. So that's why we do expect it to kind of get its act together and get a little bit stronger today. Not expecting intense or really dramatic strengthening, but it could become a Category 1 hurricane again today. And then as we go on into this evening, that's when it will make landfall, likely somewhere between Myrtle Beach and Wilmington later on tonight. And then it'll quickly move up the I-95 corridor as we head on through tomorrow morning. We'll take a look at some of the high resolution model data here so you can kind of see the timing a little bit more and get a better idea of how quickly it's going to move on through. Let this load up really quickly here, and we'll see scattered showers and storms today. Don't want to forget about that. Some of the rain could be heavy, and we could see some flooding rainfall, especially in the foothills. If you notice, it rains a lot between this morning on into this afternoon. So I don't want to discount that possibility. All right, let's turn our attention back to the tropical system again. Look at what happens as we go through 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And then by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, by lunchtime, the system's out of here and we're looking at the sky clearing on out. So we do have tropical storm warnings and even a hurricane warning that's in effect across parts of the state early this morning. You see in blue, that's the tropical storm warning, and in red, that's the hurricane warning, and that does include Wilmington. So we're going to continue to keep an eye on that part of the state for the main impacts, the strongest winds, the heaviest rainfall for us in the Piedmont. The good news is, since that system's going to track to our east, our impacts here are going to be fairly limited. Okay, we could see a few wind gusts in excess of 30 to 35 miles per hour or so briefly, especially tonight into early tomorrow morning. That could cause a few isolated power outages. So it's not a bad idea to, make sure you have a flashlight, make sure you have what you need to have together just in case your neighborhood ends up losing power for a time. The bigger issue for us will probably be the flooding threat, not only from the tropical system, but also from the rain that we're seeing out there this morning. They're unrelated. The rain that we have this morning is actually associated with a cold front that's just draped across the foothills. And so between that, the scattered showers and storms that we'll see this evening, and then maybe some more widespread rainfall across parts of our area. We're talking mainly the eastern counties as we see that the core of the system pass to our east. We could see, again, between 1 to 3 inches of rainfall. Because of that, we do have a flash flood watch that is in effect for basically the entire viewing area, all the counties that you see highlighted there in green. All right, a quick look at the 7-day forecast. The good news in all this is the cloud cover and the rain is going to keep our temperatures down a little bit today and tomorrow. Our high is only in the low to mid 80s. And then once the system gets out of here, we'll probably see a decent amount of sunshine develop tomorrow afternoon. And then we're back to summertime weather Wednesday on through the weekend. Looks like high temperatures generally in the upper 80s to low 90s with a chance of pop-up showers and storms each and every afternoon. That's a quick look at your forecast.
All right, Trent, thank you. And we'll have you update us in just a little bit. But with so much focus on the pandemic, you may have forgotten that we are in the middle of hurricane season. It runs from June 1st through November 30th. And right now, Tropical Storm Isaias is headed our way. So this morning, we want to know if you're feeling prepared. Did the pandemic make it harder or easier to get storm ready? So go ahead and let us know in the comments below. Governor Roy Cooper says preparing for this hurricane looks a bit different. He says if you need to evacuate, do it safely. Stay with friends or family or a hotel if you can afford that, and use public storm shelters as a last resort. If you have to, make sure you social distance and follow CDC guidelines. You can stay informed by checking readync.org, get emergency alerts from local weather and government, and follow the National Weather Service. Make sure you have plenty of food, water, masks, and hand sanitizers, and cleaning supplies, as well as everything in an emergency kit. So, with the first big storm heading our way, do you feel more prepared or less prepared? Did more time at home give you more time to get ready, or was your mind on other top priorities until now? So I'll start with you, Megan.
Yeah, so I would say that I'm probably more prepared than I generally am for hurricane season, given all the bottled water we've been obtaining because of the pandemic, because of all the other supplies we've been getting. We have extra food, non-perishable items on hand because we've been so prepared for the pandemic that if the hurricane or any hurricane were to affect us this year, I think we would be equipped to handle it. That said, no matter how prepared you are, it doesn't prevent flooding from affecting your house sometimes, especially if you live in a flood zone, or even if you don't. We've seen certain situations like in Hurricane Matthew a few years ago where an entire area flooded that was not in a flood zone. You do need to mentally be prepared for those types of situations where you would have to evacuate your house, and that's going to be a little trickier, especially with the pandemic. We heard Governor Cooper emphasizing, you need to plan ahead. Are you going to stay at a hotel, and is the hotel going to have safety precautions in place? Are you going to stay with a family or a family friend? How do you know that they have been taking COVID precautions and that they are healthy? So there's a lot to consider beyond just the supply aspect of things. But in general, I feel like probably I'm a little more prepared than I otherwise would be. And I know you're monitoring the comments here online, as is Turan, while he is keeping an eye on the current forecast track. What are you seeing?
Well, I'm seeing that Kay agrees with you. She says, I feel I'm prepared for anything at this point. I check my kits yearly and restock as needed. Another person said that they felt like that they were prepared. Amy actually said that she doesn't really feel like she has to prepare, though. The only ones who will notice a difference will be anyone who needs to evacuate. If they're staying with family in a hotel, it probably won't be too different. But for staying in a storm shelter, it's probably going to look different. I would agree. I do feel like I'm a little bit more prepared than normal, just because this is my first time dealing with a hurricane or a tropical storm with a house. I made sure that my husband did all the honey-do list things this weekend, making sure that all the tree branches that looked dead or just were hanging over our house, that we made sure we trimmed them, and brought in some of the patio furniture just in case, even though I know, Turan, you probably would say that probably wasn't so necessary here in Greensboro, but have you been prepared? What do you think?
Well, I will say this, kind of to your point, it doesn't hurt to go ahead and do that just in case. I'm a big believer in being prepared for as many different situations that you can think of. That's not only weather-wise, but financial-wise or otherwise, safety-wise, anything like that. I've learned over the last few years that I'm definitely have a prepper's mentality. I didn't think I did when I was younger, but I do. And so as far as this particular system, I think we are fairly prepared. We have contingency plans for several different scenarios that could unfold, and I feel pretty comfortable with those. So it's just one of those things, a part of life. Storms are a part of life, both figuratively and literally. And so we'll get through this one, fairly quickly. By this time tomorrow, we'll be in the thick of it, at least the eastern half of the state. And then by lunchtime tomorrow, it's gone.
Well, if you have questions for Turan, it is time to go ahead and ask them on our Facebook stream right now. You can type them away. And while we monitor those, I'm going to toss it over to Megan for some of our morning headlines.
All right, let's get you started with your local headlines here. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic, high school athletes with Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools are resuming voluntary workouts today. WFMY News 2's Candace Redd explains how the district leaders are working to keep student athletes and coaches safe.
At first, high school athletes with Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools were set to start voluntary workouts on July 6th. But you know what? The school district, they changed their mind. The school district pushed the start date to July 20th. This was all out of extreme caution. And then days later, high school principals unanimously decided to delay workouts for the second time due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, after waiting for about 1 month, high school athletic teams are allowed to return to campus for voluntary workouts for fall sports only. The school district is following guidelines by the North Carolina High School Athletic Association to ensure the health and safety of all coaches and students. Governor Roy Cooper says the association is also responsible for deciding if, when, and how to resume high school sports. Taking a look at your screen, here are some of the guidelines. Well, all coaches and students must be screened daily for COVID-19 symptoms prior to participating in workouts. And yes, that includes a temperature check. Well, coaches must also wear face coverings at all times, and athletes are strongly encouraged to do the same thing. Well, gatherings and outside venues are limited to no more than 25 people, and only 10 people can be in the gym. Weight, mat, and locker rooms remain closed. And schools must also clean and disinfect frequently, practice hand hygiene, and implement social distancing. Now, the question is, when is the official start for fall sports? Well, we know that the sports activities is tentatively set for September 1st. Again, that date is September 1st, but that all could change based on COVID-19 data and statistics. And then also, there's still no word on the start dates for winter, spring, and middle school sports. But for more details on this, all you have to do is visit our website. That's WFMYnews2.com.
Well, Guilford County athletes were supposed to start their practices today as well, but school and health leaders delayed that start for a second time. They say an increase in new COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations are concerning. Right now, no date yet for athletes and the marching band to return to practices. The decision is devastating a lot of student athletes, parents, and fans, but coaches agree the safety of students and staff is most important. New this morning, one person was killed in an officer-involved shooting in Mooresville. That's just north of Charlotte. Officers responded to a domestic incident there. Police say the situation escalated and an officer fired a weapon, killing one person. Neither the person killed nor the officer has been identified. The State Bureau of Investigation is investigating, which is standard protocol for officer-involved shootings. Back here in the Triad, 2 men are recovering after an argument led to gunshots in Winston-Salem. Police say one man was shot in the face, another in the leg. This shooting happened on the 7700 block of North Point Boulevard. Both men are expected to be okay. Officers are now looking for possible suspects in this case. Winston-Salem police are also looking for whoever shot a pregnant woman outside her apartment. Officers say early Sunday morning, someone started firing rounds at an apartment on Farrell Court. Police say the woman is in stable condition at a hospital. No word yet on if she was the intended target. In your national headlines now, White House COVID-19 Task Force Coordinator Dr. Deborah Birx says the virus now threatens rural areas as much as cities. She advises people in hard-hit areas living with someone vulnerable should consider wearing a mask at home. New hotspots are now appearing in the Midwest. Meanwhile, California beaches were packed this weekend, even though that state leads the country with more than 500,000 confirmed total infections. Well, mission accomplished. Look at this. 2 NASA astronauts returned to Earth yesterday in the first U.S. splashdown in 45 years. The SpaceX Dragon capsule Endeavour brought test pilots Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken back to Earth after 2 months aboard the International Space Station. The 2 men landed off the coast of Florida before tropical storm Isaias came in.
Megan, thank you. And now we want to get back to tracking that tropical storm by answering some questions that you have. But first, I want to talk about some of the comments that we have about hurricanes that people have remembered in the past. Jason said he thinks it was Floyd back in '99. His neighbor went to ECU and her apartment flooded, so she had to come home for the semester. Regina says Hurricane David when she was in high school, and then Hurricane Hugo. And then I saw somebody else that posted, there it was, Teresa said Hurricane Hugo put a tree on my car, something I will never forget. I definitely wouldn't forget that either. I think the one that impacted me most, though, living and growing up in Arkansas, was definitely Hurricane Katrina. We had several new students come from Louisiana up. They had, you know, evacuated and started going to school with us. Some stayed, which was kind of neat to have, you know, new classmates. But that's a storm I will never forget. We got a lot of rain. Megan, I'll start with you. What storm do you think resonates most with you?
Well, I would say Hurricane Matthew, but I agree with you, Stacey. I grew up in the Midwest, also in St. Louis, and we also had at least one student come to my high school having evacuated from Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. So we had her as a classmate for, I think, a couple of years before the family finally moved back down there. As far as hurricanes I most remember, it would definitely have to be Hurricane Matthew in 2016. That was the first hurricane I covered as a journalist. So we went to the coast. Oak Island is where we stayed, and I remember having to sign a waiver at the little motel saying that we knew that there was a mandatory evacuation in effect. We assumed all responsibility, even if emergency personnel couldn't get to us. And, you know, of course, that was a whole new experience for us. And it was definitely an interesting and very sad opportunity because we saw the devastating impacts of the flooding, especially not only on the coast but also inland. I remember leaving Oak Island and being deployed to Fayetteville, where we embedded with a FEMA truck who had boats on it. They were going into this neighborhood by boat and evacuating people from their homes. These people did not even know they lived in a flood zone, and their homes just all of a sudden were inundated with water and damaged beyond repair. It has still taken those communities a lot of time to recover, and I will never forget the people we met, and most importantly, the resilience we saw in the families affected by this, you know, just pushing ahead, putting one foot in front of the other to move on, or the parents staying strong for their kids. So that's something I will never forget. We're also still hearing from those of you. Scott said Hurricane Charlie in 2004, he wrote on Facebook, is a prime example of how these storms tend to go where they want. And he said, since we're so close to the cone, any shifts can make a big difference. So along that same note, we've been asking you for questions from Turan, and we heard from Kay Turan, who asked, did the storm shift since yesterday evening? She's in Burlington and wants to know what to expect.
All right, let's talk about it. Everything is essentially on track with what we were talking about really yesterday and the day before. The storm has made the turn to the north. It's moving due north now at 13 miles per hour. We just got a brand new 8 a.m. advisory in. It's still technically a tropical storm, though, just under hurricane status at 70 miles per hour. And it's going to essentially go up the I-95 corridor as we go through tomorrow morning. That's where the main impacts from this system will be for North Carolina. So here's a look at the forecast cone there. We'll zoom on in for you. And you see the cone is getting a little bit more narrow. So the forecast confidence does continue to increase that it's going to track somewhere along I-95 right through here. And it's going to move fairly quickly, but they could see wind gusts right along this little alleyway here, up to maybe 80 miles per hour. A few wind gusts in excess of that, certainly not out of the question. For us, we're going to be on the back side of the system, the west side of the system. And so the impacts here are going to be somewhat limited. So let's talk about the alerts. We do have the tropical storm warning there in blue, hurricane warning for the Wilmington area, and then points to the south of there as this storm could easily become a Category 1 hurricane as we go through the day today. Impacts around here, wind gusts 30, 35 miles per hour possible. That could cause a few isolated power outages. The flooding threat, probably a little bit more of a concern. We already have a lot of rain out there right now that's not associated with Isaias, but it is producing some heavy rainfall, and it's associated with a cold front that's actually going to help to turn Isaias away from us. And you see the rain just kind of keeps on falling across the foothills, and we're starting to see some of the outer reaches of Isaias, at least the rainfall beginning to move onshore right now down towards Wilmington. So I'm going to draw really quickly and kind of show you the steering flow that we're watching here. And this is going to be very much simplified here. It's a little more complicated than this, but basically we have a cold front here, and then we are watching an area of high pressure off to our east, the Bermuda High, and this system is just going to kind of just follow the alleyway in between these two systems and kind of go like that well, let me redraw that. It's going to take a little bit more of a northward turn, but something like that as we go through the next 48 hours or so. So that's what we're going to watch. But like I said, everything's essentially on track as far as our thinking right now. So we'll see breezy conditions beginning to pick up overnight tonight. And then we'll see those rain chances tonight on into tomorrow. And then by lunchtime tomorrow, we'll probably see some sunshine really quickly breaking out across the area. And then we're in for a fairly nice afternoon tomorrow afternoon with high temperatures in the mid 80s. I'll show you the 7-day forecast really quickly here for you. Let me load that graphic up. Anybody that knows me knows I'm very informal, so I'm just kind of bouncing around the graphics here. That's how I roll. All right, so there you go. Temperatures a little bit cooler today and tomorrow, and then we're back to typical summertime weather after that.
Okay, Trey, and I have another question. Marie said, how is this storm going to affect Rockingham County and Guilford County? I know you somewhat answered that, but if you want to go ahead and reiterate it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're going to see scattered showers and storms today, and then we're going to see the chance of maybe some more widespread rainfall as we go through tonight into early tomorrow morning. And the thing is, it does depend on if the center of the storm shifts 20 or 30 miles to the west. It's not a big shift, but that could get that back edge of the main rain shield a little bit closer to us. Right now, I'm thinking essentially from the triad eastward, you have a decent chance of that happening. The rest of us will see more so scattered showers and storms. The winds aren't going to be all that intense where we are, at least that's not the way it looks right now. It looks like we'll see those wind gusts maybe 30 to 40 is like really top end. Most of us probably more so in the 15 to 25 mile per hour range for wind gusts. And there's going to be a small window for that. It's going to be late tonight into early tomorrow morning. By the time most people get up and start moving around, 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, the system's going to start pulling away from us at that point fairly quickly. So the bullseye really is from east of Raleigh all the way to the coast. That's where we're going to see the strongest winds.
All right, Tran, we know that you are going to keep us updated throughout the day. Our entire weather team as well will be posting updates on Facebook. So if you didn't get your question answered, don't worry, we're going to keep you covered. You can go ahead and download our News 2 app. It's free and it can send you alerts right to your phone. You can also text 336-379-5775. Thank you so much for joining us here on After GMS. And before we go, I want to say really quickly, happy first anniversary to my husband, Jake. Love you so much. He's probably not watching, but maybe he'll watch this later. We hope that y'all have a wonderful Monday. Stay safe out there.